Welcome back to This Way Up
where we talk all things city life, self-love,
and all the bits in between.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noreen,
I'm Genna.
and we're back with another episode where we're going to talk about something that's been going on social media recently.
That has caused a lot of a flurry in between us and in our DMs, I feel like, and our TikTok and just everything right now.
Yeah, and it's the whole Scandinavian style when it's really just Desi style.
Yeah, it's the modernization and the newfound appreciation for a lot of Desi style that's very prevalent right now in Western fashion. A lot of fast fashion is picking up on a lot of Desi elements. And I think the big kind of moment to pick on right now is no one's acknowledging where a lot of this comes from.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really hit a string in some people because, again, like culture is so close to your identity and it plays such a huge part of who you are and what you've grown up with that, of course, when you see pieces of your culture being so easily westernized and just made mainstream, you're like, hey, wait, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
But it wasn't taken well when I did it. So how come is it all trendy now and we're just going to accept it?
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, this is kind of straying away from what we're talking about, which is going to be very much the fashion related elements and the websites we're looking at right now. But a lot of this goes beyond just fashion. And I think it's important to think about that too. Like recently I was thinking about chai and how we're really, it's this like chai is a love language to us. It's not just a drink. And I was looking into the origins of it, random sidetrack. And it was actually because, the British went to China in the 1600s because they really loved tea, looked at how tea was made in China and took a lot of it back home, right? Eventually they kept trading with China. They went down this debt of silver trying to get their tea and realized it wasn't working out in terms of their trade. So they literally came to India apparently. And during the colonial era, basically, there was a lot of, hey, make our tea, but this is not for your consumption. This is for our consumption.
Yeah.
And apparently India never actually drank tea before that until the prices of British tea crashed after the First World War, apparently. And then they said, shit, we need to push this product out. So they sent all their nice, delicate teas to Europe and sold it there. And they left this bitter, mechanical, machine processed tea for Indians and tried to put it on Indians. And Indians were like, I don't drink tea. But apparently that was a kind of time of protest where people started to put masalas in the tea and created masala chai. Yeah. So all the people that were boycotting chai at the time and tea at the time, they were like, this is our act of rebellion where we're using less tea in our cups and more spices. So kind of this is our time of protest. So it's that is what came to mind when I started to look at all these TikToks and reels everywhere. Because it's a lot of our style, our lifestyle, our food, our culture, I feel like has been accepted on another entity's terms and not our terms.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I've seen more or less the same patterns with a lot of things. And you're right where you said something and it was so incredibly crazy hearing it out loud. It is for our consumption and not your consumption. And if you think about it, I feel like that plays into effect in so many ways. And it's not just the westernization of chai tea latte or the naan bread. It's the turmeric gold milk lattes or the two-piece outfits, which are very obviously a langa. And it's
the beaded
exactly the beaded stuff. And it's when you look at it, you're like, hey, this is the type of stuff my mom would make me dress up in when I was a child. And all these kids in my school would look at me and be like, ew, what are you wearing? And now you're telling me it's a Ibiza style, it's Scandinavian, it's trendy. It makes me feel really upset because, like you said, it's for their consumption and not ours.
Cool. And I think, where we should start is let's just let's chat about some of the stuff you're seeing in media right now. Let's chat about the specifics we're seeing. And then maybe we can dive into a bit of like their origins, what they mean to us maybe, and then we can talk about how we feel about that. To start, I want to bring up beaded bags, okay? A few years ago, I want to say 2 to 3 years ago, I fell in love with this one beaded bag I saw, okay? It's from a pretty good like brand. It's like a mid-tier brand. It's not luxury, but it's a pretty mid-tier brand, and they have this bag called the Tommy bag. And it's beaded completely, start to finish, the strap, everything. And I just remember being like, I want this. This is so cool, girl, like bit of color. I can just carry it. I'm wearing a boring outfit, but I just have a cute purse. It'll be so good.
Yeah.
So good. And I spent years like, oh yeah, that's on my wish list. I don't know if I really want it. Maybe I do, whatever. And then at some point, all of this started happening, and I was like, oh my God, there's beaded bags everywhere. People are looking at Anthropology right now. They're coming out with these. They're like all over in this like cool girl, like kind of colorful space. Those bags were basically every beaded bag my mom, my nanny, my mausies have carried.
Even
when
yourself.
Yes, when I was really young, and I would steal their bags too with Indian outfits.
Yeah.
You know how you would go with like those little cholas and the little bags with the beads everywhere? I realized, dude, this is exactly that.
Yeah.
It literally is.
No, I know exactly what you mean, because as a child, I was the girliest of the girls on the street, and I loved purses with everything in me. And I remember my mausies, my mom, they would always buy me beaded bags. Like it would be this velvet material and beaded with such intricacy. And of course, it was all handwork, no machine work. Yeah. But that's what I loved. And I wonder if that's what you saw when you looked at this bag you were eyeing, and you're like, oh my God, this makes a little version of me happy inside, because I used to have this. I've seen this before. And then you're like, oh my God, this is great. But going back to the point, now it's trendy and it's cool. But how does that make you feel?
I think, like, honestly, when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, that's giving like a Y2K, like cool color, this and that. It was really giving, something I saw when I was young. Yeah. But a lot of it in clothing context, like what my family was wearing growing up, and I would look at them and be like, oh my God, that's so cute, and I want that. I think it just made me feel kind of disappointed in myself, honestly. Because my first thought when I saw this bag, this very clearly beaded bag, was, oh my God, that's so cool, girl. Like, I want it. I think it's going to be so good for the spring, the summer. Oh, I want it. It didn't even cross my mind, frankly. And it took a bit of time. And for a lot of the stuff that I was seeing online, discourse about how, hey, a lot of Desi fashion is becoming the new trend and it's not being acknowledged as Desi fashion. Yeah. It took me reading those articles and looking at it online to feel like, oh, shoot, I am a victim of this too. And I did not notice it as an Indian person. So honestly, I felt disappointed in myself.
No,
I
that's
was like,
so fair.
What is this?
I think it's also an interesting relationship you have with yourself when you don't grow up in your home country, as an example. Like, we're like born there. We lived a chunk of our childhood there, but we've lived most of like our development years, let's say, in the West. So it's like an interesting mix of how do we acknowledge our identity, what we love, what we've grown up with, but then also kind of fit in. So I feel like sometimes a lot of these memories of trends that we knew as children are kind of like foggy in your head. And until you see a lot of it and you're like, oh my God, wait, where have I seen this before? Like, this looks familiar to me. But I think it's really interesting that they're trendy, and all means, I don't think there's anything wrong with our culture becoming trendy or becoming cute. And again, I also believe that culture is meant to be shared, but I have an issue when we don't acknowledge the origins of it. I don't want a lehenga to be called a Scandinavian dress because it's very obviously from India and South Asia as a whole. Why can we not acknowledge that, hey, this is very obviously a South Asian inspired outfit? Like, that's all we're asking for. We're not saying like, don't wear it, don't do this. Like, we're just like, that's cute, you look great, but can you say that you were inspired by a Desi person? Can you say you were inspired by the South Asian like culture? Like, it's just that little, sense of appreciation and acknowledgement.
No, I think that makes total sense. And the way I see it, it's also just, it is a great thing. And sometimes I have to stop myself when I get this icky feeling going to a certain yoga class in the city, or seeing certain Desi inspired wear online. Like, an Instagram ad popped up recently that was very clearly a two-piece outfit with a little scarf giving lehenga vibes. No acknowledgement of it being, lehenga, completely separate. But when I see something like that, I have to stop myself and say to myself, hey, it's not a bad thing that they see fashion, they see culture is becoming this thing that's coveted, that's desired, that people want to, adopt in their own life. So I have to kind of suppress that ick feeling I get. And I'm like, no, this is a good thing. However, it would be great if it wasn't almost like veering into the side of exploitation.
Yeah.
Like it goes back to that tea example I was talking about, how like the entire tea industry, under British colonial rule for like a century at least, was built on the backs of Indian laborers, but all that tea was never consumed by an Indian person ever.
Yeah.
Right? Even when it came to time to give that tea to Indian people, it was the low grade, not desirable, cheap thing we need to get off our hands. Let's peddle it to Indian people. So it almost gives that when I see something online and I don't know, big companies are benefiting from it, and you're kind of like, oh, they probably saw something Indian, created the design, put it out there, and now they're making a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's being credited for all of that?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I want to say that it's probably not like there is progress. There are Indian designers on the like worldwide stage right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I just think, I don't know, it could probably be better.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree with you. And I think it's the other piece you mentioned. It's someone getting inspired by like Desi culture, South Asian culture, and then remaking it. And I think I don't love the idea of that personally, because again, you're kind of watering down an existing culture.
Yeah.
And maybe if you liked the way that a lehenga looked or how bangles looked, maybe go to a South Asian vendor, because one, they're underappreciated. Second, not many people know about them. And if you're an influencer and you love the look of what a dupatta is giving, go to an Indian store, get a dupatta, put it on, and be like, oh, I really love this, and I got this from so-and-so Indian store or so-and-so South Asian store. It's not that hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, to just give credit where it's due and
Exactly.
acknowledge what you're wearing, the significance of it. And I think at this time in, age, it's kind of just like we've gotten there with a lot of things where we're like, hey, we are now in a place where we can acknowledge that, we need to give credit where it's due. We need to, call on people to speak about important issues right now in the world. We need to be cognizant of where the words we use are coming from, the clothes we wear are, where they are from. So I feel like we have gotten there, but sometimes I feel like, especially when it comes to a lot of Desi traditions, I find we're lagging behind. I don't know what your thought is on that, but I don't know. Like, I think we could do better when it comes to the South Asian community and giving credit where it's due. I think recently I've felt a little bit like the online landscape is moving towards a bit of a shitty and dangerous place in terms of the views that are expressed online about South Asian people. And I think that, like, I don't know, maybe stop. It's not the best thing. Like, why are we spreading a lot of hate towards that kind of a community, especially where like there is a large population in Canada of South Asian people, and we, it's just really uncomfortable to see certain views online. So I feel like a lot of that is birthed from, and maybe even propagates more of this. Let's take what is theirs, make it cool, and then not give credit where it's due. Because if it's in the hands of them and not us and not westernized, then it's not cool, chic, it's not it girl, it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like oiling your hair, you were talking about that, right?
Oh my gosh, like I actually want to get into the whole hair oiling thing. And it's so frustrating because I will say it, I love the clean girl aesthetic. I very much love neutrals. We know this.
That's very much your style. Yeah.
But at the same time, I need to sit down and we need to talk about how a lot of these things are inspired by South Asian culture, because we used to go to school with hair like oiled, slicked, like drenched in oil because it was good for your hair and whatnot. But I remember, and this is something I want to touch upon too, I feel like because I was a first generation immigrant myself, like coming here was a little bit of a culture shock. And though I had immigrated to a country and I guess a geographical area, which was also heavily, I guess, populated by Desi, South Asian culture, I still found myself kind of ostracized. And that was because I feel like when you're immigrating from one country, even though you're immigrating to another geographical area, which is still heavily populated by your people when it comes to culture and like ethnic background, I still found it really hard to fit in because oiling my hair was still not cool. It was gross. It was greasy. It was disgusting. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, I thought you were also Indian. Like, does your mom not also oil your hair every single day? So it was a little hard because what am I supposed to feel when it's my own people who have, I guess, like internalized these Western values of beauty and trend and what's cool are turning on me, my own people, and telling me, no, you can't braid your hair because it's not cool. You can't come to school with your hair oiled because you smell bad. Like, you feel out of place.
Yeah, like, or even the way you talk. Like, 100%. Like, I also immigrated here with my parents when I was like young, but also old enough to like understand what was going on around me. So I feel like I also recall a lot of instances where I felt like, oh, I'm getting this weird vibe and not the best reception from a lot of ethnically Desi people, but maybe that just spent more time here, that were like born and brought up in Canada maybe, and so maybe weren't first generation immigrants. But that is the part where you're just like, what is going on? And to some degree now when I reflect back, I think about how difficult it was for me, you know, to experience that from people that looked like me. But I think you can't really blame them, right? Because I feel like when you immigrate, especially when you're a young person, you just want to fit in. At all costs, you want to fit in. You want to feel like you're not any different, that you can understand the references, the TV shows, the fun, you know, stuff that's cool, that you can experience all of that and not feel like an outsider yourself. And oftentimes, unfortunately, a lot of young people would do that by putting down a lot of their own people that maybe are just fobber than them, for a lack of better words, right? It's just like, that was probably the way for a lot of young people in the diaspora to make themselves seem a bit more like, I have fit in better than the rest. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. But it's still tough because it's like, how do you find your identity? Because obviously when you're coming to a new place, you navigate and, you know, you're drawn to people who first look like you. Because you're like, oh, you look like me.
Maybe you understand.
But it's when you're hit with that sort of criticism for just embracing your culture and identity, you're just like, wait, what? Like, what am I supposed to do? And you're, what, a 9-10-year-old child? It's weird. It's kind of strange.
Then you feel like, oh, maybe this is wrong. Like, screw this. I don't want to like have my hair oiled, or I don't want to listen to my mom's advice about what's good for me right now. And they see things that we do that are good for me right now, because I don't want to do that. I want to be cool. Like, I remember for the longest time growing up, my mom would always want to give me leftovers for lunch, as she should. Who the hell is cooking a separate lunch? You better have leftovers for your kids. But she would give me like a roti and sabzi and stuff, but she would make a wrap out of it. Yeah. That has been our tradition forever. Like, she'll be like, hey, like for tomorrow's lunch, I'm thinking this sabzi, I'll just make it into a wrap and give it to you. She would like do it in foil as if it was a burrito, just so that it was like perfectly wrap-ish. And she would tell me, okay, open it from this end so it doesn't all fall out and all of that. And that was just a thing. Like, because I felt like, and she knew that, and she felt like too, she couldn't let her kid go to school with Indian food. I couldn't go to school with an Indian lunch because I don't want to sit there and eat with my hands, or I don't want to be the odd one out when everyone's eating a sandwich. And I know this is like a concept that's been not memed, but like covered in movies and like talked about to death. And I'm sure a lot of people are just like, oh, okay, we know your struggles with Indian food, but it sticks. It cuts deep. To this day, when I go to work, I think about, hey, I'm making, well, as difficult as it is, I've learned a few things. I'm making an Indian thing for dinner today. What am I going to do for lunch tomorrow? Like, how do I take this in a way that's like packaged good and not too Indian and just like, you know what I mean? And lately, like, like someone at work was like, oh my God, that smells so good. What are you eating?
Wow.
Yeah. And I was
That's
like, oh,
unheard of.
that's so sweet. And it's like
Yeah.
nice and awesome. And they weren't Indian. And I felt really great. But I remember that first instinct of, oh, someone just spoke about the lunch I brought.
Yeah.
And it was like a paneer pulao I made.
Yeah.
And my instinct was to be like, to freeze up a little because I was like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
I just got spotted. It's happening. But then I was like, oh my God, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Like, I just made it at home. It's like paneer, which is like halloumi kind of, and rice, right? And I explained it to her, and it was like a sweet interaction.
Yeah.
But like, that instinct was, oh my goodness, I have been spotted for bringing Indian food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is the core of it. Like you said, we have all these memories of feeling not great about embracing our culture, and it's been really difficult for us, and we've tried to push it away.
Mm-hmm.
So now for it to be like this online, you're kind of just like, really?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Which is why, again, I feel like sometimes I have to suppress that thought of that initial ick when I see Indian things being widely embraced by like fast fashion companies, especially because I'm like, oh, you don't get it. You don't get that, like, you don't get it, basically, which is why I have to suppress it and be like, no, this is a good thing. However, do it in a way that's fair, that gives credit where it's due.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal struggle right now.
I just don't love the idea of someone making money off of someone else's childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of sad because when I experienced this, like, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to like dive a little bit deeper into it. I internally avoid going to yoga classes because I've been to 3, and out of the 3, 2 times it was not an ethnic instructor, and they ended the class with saying namaste.
Namaste, yeah.
And I was just like, ugh, what made you say this? Like, first of all, like, if you're going to learn the art of teaching yoga,
which is heavily tied to a lot of like Hindu religious elements, like, yeah.
Please learn the ethnic origins of it and learn how to respect it, because this is not just a cultural thing. Like with yoga itself, it's also very deeply rooted in Hinduism, like you said. And I think it's a little disrespectful when you don't understand the context behind it. So when I go to a yoga class, one, I'm a little on edge because I'm like, oh my God, I really don't want to hear another instructor go namaste at the end of this like session. But second of all, I kind of feel out of place because it's like, I'm a South Asian woman leaning into my own culture, but why am I going to a non-South Asian place?
Thank you.
To feel connected to my identity.
Period.
Like,
why? And that's the thing. That's exactly why I have to suppress the feeling. When I go to yoga class, it's a non-ethnic instructor, like you said, and namaste is said. My instinct is to feel this icky feeling. Mm-hmm. Then I suppress it because I'm like, no, Genna, like, how can you say that? Like, someone is taking the time to learn about this practice, and maybe it means a lot to them in their life, and they have done the research and they do understand what it means. Why is it that you feel this way? But then it's just like, it's that weird space of being in this like, oh, I want to learn yoga and I want to practice yoga and I want to be able to connect with maybe a lot of our origins, our family's origins, and understand maybe the cultural, the religious significance, all of that. But it does feel weird going to a studio that does not have any Desi people there. Yeah. Right? That maybe it feels weird. And I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know if I'm wrong to feel icky.
I don't think you're wrong to feel it. I think this is a feeling a lot of us have. And that's what makes me feel like it's not wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. Because my instinct is, again, to have this battle between, hey, someone not from the Desi community has learned to practice yoga and maybe understands the cultural significance and wants to share in this practice. But then that part of me is just like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Like, how is it that there's no Desi people here then? Yeah. Right? Like, how is it that, and sometimes I think about like the Toronto fitness space, and it feels like, yeah, I'm sure it's a point of representation or lack thereof. I don't see a lot of Desi instructors in general, let alone in the yoga space, right? Yeah. Something that needs to change, clearly. But agree. Like, yeah, I think there's so much we could talk about. There are so many things that are being very trendy right now that are in the limelight that people are really enjoying, and it's weird to sit back and watch it unfold, because you're like, I want to say something, but also this is a good thing. Our community like is being brought into the limelight, but also isn't being done in the right way. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think is your like takeaway in terms of the mindset you'll have when seeing all of this happen? Because my prediction, it's going to be a Desi Girl summer, except no one will call it a Desi Girl summer. Because point being, I think we're going to see a lot of Desi fashion in the limelight for the next season.
Yeah. I feel so conflicted.
Yeah.
It's really hard because it's like all these trends remind me of my childhood that I so like yearn for, because when you're a kid in the diaspora, you're also like a first generation immigrant. Your childhood is literally split in half. But it's so difficult because I love to see people embracing my culture and making it cool, but not that they need to make it cool. It already is. It is cool. It has always been cool, but you know, they think it's like fun to try on, which I love that for you, that you're finding beauty in these pieces and this fashion and this world. But at the same time, like, I just want them to acknowledge where it comes from. I don't want to feel like my culture and identity have been stripped from me, watered down. And I think that's a huge part of it, being watered down and then presented as something palatable for people that are not me and my community.
Yeah, I think so.
I just want recognition for our work. I just want recognition for the artistry that goes into our fashion, our food, like everything, our medicinal practices, our, you know, practices in general.
Ayurveda.
Like, oh, exactly.
See, like we're just digging into more and more subjects that we could just talk on and on about. But like,
it's a lot. It's so deeply rooted. And all I want is a little bit of acknowledgement to be like, you know what? The Desis did it first. The South Asians did it first. And I'm so grateful that they were able to come up with these practices that are so helpful to our health, to our mental well-being, to like our fashion, the way we like appreciate artistry, work, whether it's like work in fabric and clothing, or whether it's like home decor even.
Yeah.
I just want the acknowledgement. I'm okay with you appreciating it and like, you know, taking part in it, but let's not strip it away from the people who created it, and let's give them a little bit of acknowledgement. Not a little bit, give them the acknowledgement, because I think we as children who grew up in the diaspora would just want that little bit of like, hey, I understand that it wasn't trendy when you were a kid, and I'm sorry. Like, I feel like that would be, like, acknowledging the fact that it's South Asian would be, like, an actual sorry.
I think
I treated you so poorly for embracing your culture when you were younger. I think so.
And, like, no one has to, like, no one has to, like... It's such a hard topic because it's like you don't want anyone to have to like take on this accountability that they haven't purposely like they didn't partake in like the treatment we went through. However, I think we all have a responsibility to be very understanding of another community's, another person's like experience, maybe the trouble that they've gone through, and the lack of maybe respect that their culture they've experienced in the past. We all have that responsibility. Yes. So I think be it the South Asian community, be it any other community, I think we all have that responsibility, whether we were the ones that, you know, were part of making them feel a way or not. Yeah. It is still our responsibility to understand how we speak, what we say, the words we use, the clothing we wear, all of that, to be sure that we're being the most cognizant in this environment. And I agree. Like, for me, my takeaway as well is just, give credit where it's due. Like maybe just take a second, understand where things come from, and like maybe converse more about this stuff with people of that community. And if you're gonna shove things into the limelight, shove's a bad word. If you're gonna put things into the limelight by posting about things, posting about your clothing, this, that, like I think there's always space to spark conversation about the significance of what it is that you are wearing, doing, speaking of, eating.
I agree.
Period.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something I'm going to do moving forward is one, be so present with my own culture and not in a way where I'm questioning whether it's trendy. I don't care. If I want to wear chumkas with a Western outfit, I know it's a common thing. So be it. I'm not going to feel weird for doing it because it doesn't fit the trendy clean girl aesthetic because my jumkas aren't minimal enough. But whatever. It's me. That's the whole point. And I think I'm going to embrace my culture even more and be loud about it.
Yeah, be loud about it. Take the fucking paratha to work, bro. Like, do it all. Like, don't second guess whether you should do something or not, whether other people will think it's weird or not. I think we're finally at the age we were for a long time, though, but now it's about time we do that.
I agree.
Cool. Yeah. That was good. That was a great discussion. I feel like something we can talk about over and over and over, and a bunch of things we can dig into, but hopefully this week we're all kind of taking away how important it is to sit with your culture, to sit and understand someone else's culture, and give credit where it's due.
Yeah, and most importantly, understand the fine line between cultural appreciation and appropriation, because I think that's a huge thing. People don't want to gatekeep culture. We love when people embrace it, but it's important that we give credit where it's due. And I think that kind of sums up our entire episode today, which is giving credit where it's due.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, thank you for joining us. This was another episode of This Way Up, and we are so excited to see what you think.
Yeah, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Make sure to subscribe, click the bell icon, and if you're on Spotify, we're actually going to put up a poll. So make sure you let us know where you found our podcast from, because we'd love to know where you're listening from.
And also let us know what you'd like to hear next time. We're always open to conversing and understanding what more to chat about.
Yeah. All right. Bye.